It's time for my seventh choice in the 10-day movie challenge. I am currently participating in 10 flicks that had an impact on me, a big impact on me, is how I'm choosing to pick these films. And this one is we're traveling back to the 80s again. You have to remember, for me, the 80s were pretty significant. That's when I went through puberty. That's when I made decisions about what I was going to do with my life, or at least after high school. That's when you have your first kiss, and maybe you fall in love, or you think you do, and so all that good stuff that happens when you are either a tween or a teen, what have you, that happened right around the time that this film came out. Up until then, I didn't feel there was any film that represented my generation, that represented me in that time frame of my life, until a certain writer / director chose a group of kids, and they were kids, or at least fairly young adults, who represented his ensembles in various forms and different numbers of them congregating at different times in his flicks. And they got a lot of flack for being maybe a little too bratty. Yeah, I'm talking about John Hughes, and I'm talking about 16 Candles, 1984. It's really hard to pick one John Hughes film because so many of them are favorites of mine. But I have to pick 16 Candles because it is what started it all for me. And Molly Ringwald is a peer of mine, a few years older than me, but basically a peer. So I got to watch her go through things while I was standing, as the usual wallflower that I was, along the wall, anticipating what was to come and hoping to learn from her. It's such a fantastic look at what it is to be a teen in that era too, in the 80s, between the music and, of course, the dress and the language and the interaction and what it is they're concerned about. Some of it is obviously very dated, but you could take that and you could just change some of those artists and change those pieces of clothing and set it in the 70s. And there's such a universal theme of feeling like the misfit, the rejected one, the overlooked and totally unnoticed person, that it doesn't matter what era it takes place in. It's just, for me, because this is my time, it has a special meaning, and it does, I'm sure, for a lot of my classmates. 16 Candles, fantastic soundtrack. That is where I first was introduced to Oingo Boingo, which, of course, I had to then buy on cassette, and the soundtrack on vinyl, which I still have. It is where I think, for girls of my generation, Jake Ryan became this perfect man. And yes, he was a boy, he was in high school, but he was a man. And he was that guy we all wanted and never thought we could have. But the honesty, the candor for a teen movie at that time was unheard of. And this is what started it all. And it continued with all of the next group to come, with Breakfast Club and Some Kind of Wonderful and Ferris Bueller. And it was kids really seeing what we were really talking about and thinking, and all the feelings, emotions we were just being drowned in. It all started with John Hughes, and I think it all started with 16 Candles. And that's why it's my movie, or day 7 of movies that had a big impact on me.